Visions of Greatness is more than a show. It's a journey into the minds and moments that redefine what's possible. I'm Ira Joe Fisher, and this is Visions of Greatness.
Hey, thanks, Ira Joe. Great hearing your voice again. And speaking of voices and great individuals, I'm here with my sidekick, as always, Brian Kelsey. How you doing today, Brian?
Fantastic, DT. You know why? Because I'm always so excited to jump on here because we've always got some really great guests, and today is no exception. He's an amazing musician, and we'll get to him in just a second here on Visions of Greatness. But occasionally, like what we like to do is celebrate the visions of not so greatness. And I think Don, you've got a couple of those, or what do you got?
Well, I got one. I'm glad you mentioned it because this is a great one. In a classic display of misguided criminal confidence, an individual attempted an ambitious daytime run on a South Florida bank. The suspect demanded cash from the teller, which was not the strange part. What truly sealed the legacy of not so greatness was the getaway vehicle of choice, a completely motorized, bedazzled golf cart. Unsurprisingly, the ensuing high-speed chase with the local sheriff's office deputies barely topped the speed of 10 miles per hour before the culprit was easily boxed in and arrested.
Now, Don, you play a lot of golf. Have you ever done anything like that on the golf carts?
Well, I wouldn't want to make a getaway on a golf cart. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's really the opposite of what our guest is today. So, Don, let's talk about him. He's an amazing musician. His name is Dave Lebolt, and he's won an Oscar and done so many really amazing things, and has a really amazing story.
Well, that's true. I mean, the list is endless of the people he worked with. He's a keyboard player, but he's also an electronics whiz. And Brian will talk to you a little bit about that in a minute. But just to rattle off, not to name drop, but he played keyboard with David Bowie. You've heard of him, Brian?
Yeah, well, I know him well.
Okay,
One of my
great.
favorites.
Okay, and how about Billy Joel? Heard of him?
Rings a bell. Rings a bell.
Okay, now he didn't have John Lennon, but he had Julian Lennon.
Yeah.
And also Roberta Flack, Shaka Khan. He also composed music along with John Barry, the great John Barry, from all the great spy movies that he did the music for, the James Bond thrillers, and
Yeah.
also Marvin Hamlish, another pretty successful composer.
Yeah, he's had a great sort of history, and we'll get into with him. It's really pretty cool. But he started out playing, like you said, keyboards for all these great bands, and it's just that in itself is just amazing. But he's also a very technologically oriented guy, and through the years, he's kind of gone through different phases of creating technology in music. One of which is a software called Pro Tools, which, if you don't know what that is, it's the industry standard for audio recording in every TV and feature film you can imagine is done with Pro Tools, and he had a big hand in developing that. I use it all the time here, so it's really interesting. And then he's gone on to now he's scoring. Well, he's doing a lot of things, but he's scoring movies.
Yeah, to mention about Pro Tools, he won an Oscar for that. I remember seeing him on the Academy Awards
Oh, wow.
doing that. And yeah, he's scoring movies. In fact, I could rattle off about 10 movies that he's done, but the one that always sticks out in my mind is the great Austin Powers movie, The Spy Who Shagged Me.
One of my favorite movies. All right, well, let's get into it. Let's bring him on, shall we?
Let's do it.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Dave
Dave
Lebolt.
Lebolt.
Thanks so much for being on the show today. And I've got a variety of questions that both Brian and I are going to feed to you. We may not get to all of them. It's really more the conversation we have that's most important. And so I am going to start with the first question, which is, if you could switch places with another individual in your life, who would that be?
Don, I want to say you, but
Hey, me too. That was my first answer.
Don Teague. Um, that's a tough one. When I thought through this, it's going to sound like sort of spacey spiritual, but I think about I've neglected that part of my life in some ways in terms of directly thinking about it. So I think Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist Zen master guy, is a guy who's like, wow, I've switched places and live, walk in those shoes for a minute, or the Dalai Lama or something. I feel like it's a side of me and all of us, that's not explored enough, perhaps. Some people are lucky enough they fully get into that. So I figured that would be an interesting place to switch places.
Right.
That's a good one. We haven't heard that one, Don.
That's a first.
We've heard them all, but now I'm thinking about it. That makes a lot of sense.
I think Don, he got like Bucky Dent to say that he wanted to be the Dalai Lama. I think that's what happened.
No, Bucky did not. We haven't interviewed Bucky yet, but he might say that, and I'll let you know if he does.
Now that I said that, he'll never do the show.
So now you've played with, we've talked about your career, but you've played with so many different artists and so many different places, and such an amazing career. But I'm sure you've been interviewed, over the years. Are there any? Is there any questions that you wanted to be asked that you haven't during these interviews?
Yeah, I guess when I thought about that, I guess I would say, what shaped my worldview as a person? A lot of times, if you're a high-end recording artist or something and you're getting interviewed, they'll eventually get there. But I think that's the kind of thing in my interview process. A lot of my interviews were more on the tech side and stuff. And I guess that's the interesting thing, is what shapes us as human beings, what gets us to be where we are. And, that's one that I thought was interesting.
Well, why don't we answer that question? Why don't you tell us?
Oh, I can't tell you that. No, I would say I was lucky enough that I had childhood experiences because my parents were into the creative arts, and they were big readers. So they encouraged me. And so they put me into a program when I was really young called the Children's Center for the Creative Arts. I grew up on Long Island in New York. And of all places, this was stuck out there. And it was one wacky, cool program that let you explore music, dance, all this kind of stuff in a very free-form, unconventional way. I mean, it was quite unconventional. So anyway, bottom line is that got me really to think about things outside of the box. And I think that's a big thing. You guys probably know about the trope of it. It's like, we see creative arts being defunded a lot and stuff like that. But the bottom line is, there's just reams of data that shows that when people come into contact with that when they're kids, and Don did all kinds of stuff like that too when he was younger.
Yeah.
Anything you do is enhanced by it because it gets you to think in a different way. It sort of opens up other synaptic stuff. It's totally important to have math, science background and stuff in life, but just exploring that, I think, makes us better balanced human beings.
I agree. Like, I could talk for hours about that because the creative arts are being defunded and taken away.
Yeah.
One of the things that I just loved about my childhood is that my parents, they didn't really play. There's always a piano in the house. There was just a piano always since I could walk. So every time I'd walk by and clunk, 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 pretty soon I was actually interested in it. I wasn't like forced to take piano lessons or forced to whatever. I wanted to learn how this big thing worked that I see every day. And so stuff like that, I think is so important. It's so true.
I agree. And as I got to be friendly with Don and he told me his background when he did a lot of singing and some interesting doo-wop group kind of stuff. I mean, that's like street. That's like early street. That's cool.
Well, my parents threw me out on the street. I had no choice.
All he could do was sing. He had nothing else.
Right. By the way, you want to hear a good drummer? You look at Brian Kelsey. He can play drums.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm within reach.
There you go.
My drum.
There is a kit.
Right there.
Awesome.
So, keeping on this theme, which is kind of like this does fit in with the next question because, and not everybody can answer this with any real defined opinion, but I think, has there ever been somebody in your life or more than one person who was a role model or is a role model or many people were role models? I'd like to know where you stood on that.
Yeah, a lot of musicians really influenced me because I decided I wanted to be a professional musician when I was pretty young. Like, by the time I was 14, I was like, this is definitely going to be my gig. But before then, I was still in it. So if I think about when I was a little kid, uh, it was back in the day, and Leonard Bernstein had stuff he was doing on TV. It was a young people's concert thing, and he explained how the orchestra worked and what was going on. And this is before I fully got, I took some classical piano lessons. This is before I fully got into everything that was going on in pop music. And that was really inspirational to me because that guy was really friggin' charismatic. And he had, a presence, and he had a way of explaining things, and I immediately wanted to do it. So I was literally conducting in my living room, sadly for everybody else, and had some fun, and it definitely influenced me. And later on, different musicians, everybody from John Coltrane, Miles Davis, Igor Stravinsky, Frank Zappa, all these different people, and then a lot of rockers really heavily influenced me. Funk people influenced me, but in terms of personalities, that I just thought, oh, that guy's a Renaissance man. I think that's a cool thing, right? People that have, a worldview where they're just like aware of a lot of different disciplines, and they can hold that together, and they're focused, and they do it with some pizzazz and charisma. What's wrong with that?
Nothing.
Nothing at all.
Yeah.
That's a creative side, just in full effect. What about pet peeves? Give me some pet peeves. You surely over the years must have. And
Well,
they must be reoccurring after, because musicians, tend to have certain things that they're just,
right. Well, if I think about anything, it would be, the phrase "luck is opportunity meets preparation." Like, you get to go someplace because you are lucky enough to be there, but you have to be ready for that. You have to have put your sort of Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours in. So if I have any pet peeves, it's if somebody just doesn't take responsibility for their work, doesn't give a damn. And even if they're not giving a damn, they're just not showing up really. So that's definitely a pet peeve. It could happen in a musical context. It could happen in my technology gig stuff, or just in interpersonal stuff. So, I guess that's a pet peeve.
Yeah, I agree. It's like you have the opportunity. You're lucky enough to fall into whatever it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so do your thing. Like come to the table, and
Yeah.
if you don't, then what are you doing?
And it extends into just personal life too. Like, just look, the fact is, like, on personal appointments, sometimes I'll be 5 to 7 minutes late, whereas a business one, I'm never going to be late if I can avoid it. But when somebody just, like, doesn't show up, or like and they could have been there, it's like, nah, next.
Exactly. You got one shot. Goodbye.
Yeah. I'm just too important.
When we created the show, we came up with a list of about 30 pet peeves.
Wow.
I'm not going to even go there right now, but
I'd love to get sent the list, because that
you'll
sounds
get
like
it.
you're a big complainer. Then you don't like it, all these people doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, my only pet peeve is having to send people that list. That's
Never
okay.
again will I
Anyway,
ask.
so moving right along. And I know you're a very active guy, and you're doing all sorts of creative things. I've always known you to be that way. And it's almost an ironic question to ask about what do you do in your spare time? Like, maybe you eat lunch or whatever it might
Breathe.
be. You breathe, right? Exactly.
If you come from New York, you eat lunch standing up, right?
Yes.
That's right. That's right. But that being said, is there something that you do, a passion you have other than music, or something that you just like to do to fill your time other than what we've just talked about?
Yeah. Well, in terms of constructive stuff, it would be outdoor fitness, hiking and biking, and just being able to get out and enjoy, living in California, you get that opportunity a lot. And I think those are the main things, that and reading when I can get to do it, even though I don't get to do it as much as I'd like. I always like to do that when you can dig into it and it sort of magically go into a book. And I love watching really great films or streaming series. I'm totally a cinephile. And so there's nothing I'll turn down about that. But the biggest problem is, where is the spare time? Like, so you got to make it more. And I'm planning on doing that some more. I swear I'm going to do it more now. It's going to happen through this show.
We'll be checking back with you to make sure.
Yeah, I find as we get older, it's like, wow, I don't want to, I want to start, living and making sure you get all the things that are part of
Yeah.
life rather than just working. But so right now you are, your schedule is, I mean, do you mostly work from home? Like where do you score these things, and what, how does that work?
Well, Brian, I'm not. I'm working with a company called Blackmagic Design on DaVinci Resolve software. Is heading up strategy for that. That's what I do as my
Get
job for the
out.
day.
I didn't like
Yeah.
I literally just switched to Resolve 1 year ago because I've been Premiere my whole life, since
Excellent.
forever. And I cannot get enough of it. Oh my God. I'll have to talk to you all
Well,
about
now we're connected. This is
because
what
that
I'll
is,
edit out, and this is where Don's going to get to do his reading. So,
so this will be
read a
edited on,
medical technical journal right now. If you're reading about like the latest LASIK procedures. So what was the question? It was about, what I do. So I work at home. So scoring, I still do some scoring. Like I finished doing a documentary film score it's called the Ozu Diaries. It's a big art film about the director, Ozu, the Japanese director, who's like at Kurosawa's level or Fellini's level. He's like a, big director. So anyway, that was a big project, but I have to do that around my job. And I'll be switching that over time, go back to doing more music. I switch back and forth a bit. So you're asking where I do it. Now, edit. This is where do I work? I work from home most days, and I go into an office a couple of days a week so I can sort of get a change of pace and have some socialization with some other human beings.
that's pretty much my life. I'm either right here for hours and hours editing,
Yeah,
or then I go to the office for, well, maybe
Yeah.
one day just to get some socialization. But
yeah,
in any kind of, a creative field like that, where you are literally at your computer creating or creating music, it's,
Yeah.
it's very it's tiring after a while, because you don't realize how much energy you're putting into it. Then you're like, oh my gosh, I've been sitting here for like, 5 hours. I need to get up and go out and go for a hike, go for a
yeah.
walk.
To say nothing of how unhealthy that could be from a cardiovascular perspective.
Yep.
But if you're thinking about, the other aspect of it is just you're in your head, and it's very kind of, when you're creative and whatever you're doing, you can get very OCD, just singularly focused. So you need to get those breaks, because that's part of what recharges you anyway. And then you get energy from people. Don's like that. Like he's a big, the years I've known him, he gets a lot of energy from being around other people.
Yeah,
And
I'm
he
a people
spreads it.
person.
Right now he's falling asleep from this one.
No, I'm not. In fact, I'm really enjoying the conversation. It's great. This question we have here, I'm not so sure. Well, we'll see what you have to say. If you could have achieved success in a different field or line of work, what would it have been?
Well, there's so many jokes and so little time, but
No one-liners, please.
because I've done two career paths, like a music thing and a technology thing, in terms of doing some invention there. I think what I think about it is maybe fine craftsmanship, things like woodworking or something like that, or maybe even, making instruments, luthier or something. Imagining, because I have some mechanical skills, I could see that could have been, or could be an interesting thing to get deeply into, because it's detail oriented. You can make things, no two things are exactly the same, and you have a deep appreciation for that craft. And so I always think that's cool.
I think you'd be great at it.
Yeah, if I didn't say that, I guess I would have said prison warden or something,
You should I'm a woodworker. You should take it up, because it's a very similar thing. It's very relaxing, believe it or not, because you're just doing it as, some people like build models, or other people do other things, but there's something about creating
Brian,
something from nothing.
I saw that you do that, because I can see that you've hosted, different types of shows in that sphere. And it's a great thing to be getting into. And you say meditative. That's it. Like I look for something, as I'm not like in my 20s, I'd like to do things that are potentially exploring that.
Yeah.
Because, it's sort of like the monkey mind thing stops. If you're doing a film score, that is a million details. You're doing software development, a million details, people management. And I'm sure it's the same thing if you were like Daniel Day-Lewis and you took the 3 years off and decided to become a shoemaker and went to Florence. But while that's true, you're still just focused on that craft. that by itself. There's a long-winded answer to your question.
No, that's, I was kind of going on. I was getting to another question, which was, if there, is there anything that, is there like one thing you could do over if you could in your life or your career or?
Yeah, that I think I have a good answer for that. And that would be to listen more. I swear. Like what I mean by that is, maybe it's wisdom that comes from time, but in the business I came up with in the music scene, you had to be brash, you had to get in there, you had to prove what you could do. And everybody who's, really skilled when they're younger, a lot of times they don't want to hear anything from anybody. And I just think of course I had to listen to people. I had to find a way in socially. I had to be able to accommodate everything. But I think the thing I'm really pointing at is that there's a lot we can learn from people that are different from us, and a lot we can learn by just being quiet sometimes and observing what's happening. And, I wasn't that as much when I was younger. So I think I've learned that more over time. And I just think it's something I would have done a bit differently if I was doing it all over.
Yeah.
I think more people need to think along those lines too, especially
I
the
agree.
younger we are, the less we listen. So, being
Yeah.
that we're three older guys, we're not old, but we're older guys.
Don't throw Brian in
Except for
with
me. Except for me.
I'm
Harry
older.
over here.
I'm up there, man. My back hurts. I want to take a
Yeah,
nap.
but
I know he's always complaining when we do these. It's
you
really
look like
good.
you're not a day over 29, so you're good.
Oh, thank you. It's from being creative. You have
I'm
to
going to get a better edit now.
what's that?
I'm going to get a better edit now.
Yes.
Maybe we'll see.
Yeah.
But I love this question because in all of our lives, my life for sure.
Uh-oh.
You're walking around, you're seeing things going on in the world or whatever, and you see something happen, and you say to yourself, you just can't make this stuff up. What rings a bell with you on that category?
Well, there were a lot of things that I could have brought up to you about that, but I can't do it mostly because I don't know. It's like, loose lips sink ships or something. But I can tell you one story that's sort of weird and amusing, but was not amusing when it happened. So I in my 20s, I toured with a lot of different people. But one of the people I was out with was this guy, Richie Havens, who had played at Woodstock, and he was an incredible singer. I mean, by any standard, he was really a great performer. And I was in another planet playing with him because his band that he had at the time were all street black musicians from New Orleans. They came from the Ninth Ward, and they razzed me constantly. This guy, with shoulder length hair and mutton chop sideburns, shoulder length hair. Imagine that, folks. And I'm out on tour with these guys, and they're constantly saying, "Oh, I can't use the language." They were just like constantly saying, just bend over. I'm going to take you. They were just really pushing my buttons for months. So finally, I told the drummer, who was the ringleader of the whole thing, his name, I can say it, Herman Ernest III, but you can call me TT. Herman Ernest III was these guys played on Lady Marmalade. They were Alan Toussaint's rhythm section after the Meters, and they were really great players. And Herman ended up being Dr. John's drummer before he passed for years.
No way. I didn't know that.
He's a great guy, great drummer, but this was back in the day, and he was like, "This is my band." He was just constantly like razzing me. So I said, "Shove off, Herman." And we were in the Bahamas, or it was Bermuda, at the Princess Hotel in Bermuda. This is too long a story. You can edit some of this out. And he said, "What'd you say to me?" You can imagine the word he used after that. And I said, "Yeah, I'm going to say it again." "Yeah, there you go, Herman." And he said, all right, brother." He grabbed me by the arm and the leg. He was a big guy. He was like 6'4" or 5. And he hung me over a fifth floor blank balcony, holding me by my arm and my leg. And he said, "What'd you say, man? What'd you say? You're going to take that back now?" I was like, "What is going on? This is unbelievable." And my heart's going, "Oh." This was not funny at all, of course, at the time. And I'm really afraid of heights. So I'm dangling over this balcony. It's going on for quite a while. I'm thinking, he's drunk. He's going to get tired, and I'm going to die. And I'm going, Richie's standing in the back. And this is what I hear. too much, David, too much. That's what he's saying. I said, and finally I apologized to him hanging over the balcony. And wanting to kill him, and he pulled me back in, and that's the end of that story.
That's a good one.
You still got paid and everything, correct?
What's that?
You still got paid. The check cleared, everything.
Oh, that was fine. I mean, on that same tour, when we were in Bermuda, I went on you can't make this up. Here's another, can't make it up. On the same tour, they had mopeds out there, and Richie goes, "Hey, let's go out and take a ride with my friend Al Green."
Oh my God.
Oh, wow.
So I get on this moped, and this is going to make you laugh. I didn't know who Al Green was.
Mm.
I had no idea who he was.
Yeah.
And he had a girlfriend, and she had nails out to here and big pantsuit. This is like the 70s, right? And we're at this moped, and Al Green's asking me, "So how's it working with Richie? What's going on?" and everything. And not too long after that, I really got into Al Green. I was like, "What? Unbelievable!" I rode mopeds with Al Green and got dangled over a balcony, all in one trip.
Oh my gosh!
And that was just one trip.
You know what?
You can't make that up.
You can't make that up.
We have one more question, but I just want to squeak one more in really quickly.
Yeah.
Just in terms of music, you've played with so many different bands, so many different people, so many different places and genres. What makes a good band to you?
Well, I think that music is a form of communication that's nonverbal, and is the only thing, I don't mean to sort of mix this all together, but it's the only thing that's like sex in a way, where there's this deep connection that can happen between human beings that's totally nonverbal. A good band is when people sort of gel together when they're playing together, and it's like a mind meld. You do not have to communicate about what's happening. You're feeling each other's groove. You're falling into place. You're leaving space for each other. You're listening to each other, and you're supporting each other. So I think that's the biggest thing that makes a great rhythm section a great band thing. But the other part of a band dynamic, Brian, if you're asking about band dynamics, that would be the personalities. Usually there's a couple of key creatives in a band. And if they, everybody's got egos, everybody's got stuff that goes on, but there has to be something where they sort of let go of it sometimes, or they show support to each other. And it feels like a kind of big dysfunctional family, but it gels. So when you feel like that feeling of camaraderie, and you feel that you don't have to even talk about how you're doing the thing, or if you give advice to each other, you totally take it in, that's a great band.
That's great.
Love it.
I told you, he's not just a pretty face, this guy.
I know. That's what I'm learning.
Great answers. Really great answers. That's amazing.
Oh, good.
Brian, we should ask the final question, which
Yes.
we should, if we could do it in tandem, we would. We started the show calling it Visions of Greatness. And that word greatness just means so much and so differently to different people. So this is sort of the grand finale. What does greatness mean to you?
I think it's obvious that you could look at people's personalities and say, oh, they're a great woman or man because they've accomplished these things in their life. But I think the biggest single thing that human beings feel about great, it can be as small as just personal interaction. So it made a difference in the world in some way. If you feel like that your presence in the world is making a difference, and that doesn't have to be a difference that's touching 500 or millions of people. It could be touching just your family. That you're improving things, that you're moving things forward, and you have some deep connection to the work that you do, to the community that you're in. I think the greatness thing is when you've actually stood out in that way and people appreciate it or understand it. And then you feel that when you've been on the earth, it made a difference. And that's what we all want in some way. And that's a lot more meaningful than being a billionaire. Ultimately there's political power, there's socioeconomic power, but there's a feeling of fulfillment that you get, that you could have made a difference with people.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, like we say with so many people, we could talk for hours and hours, but we want to keep this nice and tight. And you have just been an absolute pleasure, and it's been so great to have you. Thank you, Don, for making this connection.
Hey, this is one of the more enjoyable things I've done today.
Wow, I don't know what that means, Don, but I can tell you this.
I'll
always
leave you with
enjoyed-
that thought.
I've always enjoyed talking to you anyway, and you're always entertaining. And Brian, it's a pleasure to meet you. You're a great host, and I really wish you guys the best with this show. It's an interesting idea, and we can all attempt to be even more great as today.